When was the last time you saw a sports car that truly moved you? No, I'm not talking about those modern plastic-wrapped gadgets with oversized touchscreens and eco-friendly, turbocharged engines that sound like glorified vacuum cleaners. I mean a real car, a car that awakens something primal in you. A car that makes your heart pound, your hands shake, and your breath catch in your throat. A car that doesn't just drive. It screams, it roars, it threatens to tear up the asphalt beneath its wheels. Remember those? No? Well, that's exactly what we need to talk about. Today's automakers have buried sports cars under an avalanche of sensors, driving aids, and computer-assisted everything. They've turned cars into sterile, predictable machines that make you feel like the passenger, even when you're the one behind the wheel. Sure, you can hit 60 mph in 3 seconds flat. You can take corners with surgical precision. You can drive like a pro without ever actually being one. But do you know what you can't do? Feel the car. You don't control it, you operate it like a glorified PlayStation simulator with leather seats. Where's the thrill? Where's the danger? Where's that pulse-racing moment when you realize that one wrong move could send you spinning into oblivion? Old-school sports cars had too much of that. They were wild, untamed, and outright dangerous. They didn't just exist. They lived. They had character, personality, a voice. They weren't designed to be user-friendly. They weren't for everyone. Either you tamed the beast or it threw you into a ditch without a second thought. These cars demanded respect. They forced you to build a relationship with them, to understand their quirks, to earn their trust. They weren't just about speed. They were about the experience, about the connection, about the raw, unfiltered joy of driving. Now, how many times have you heard the same tired sales pitch? 700 horsepower, 0, 60 in 2.5 seconds, all-wheel drive, packed with the latest driver assistance systems, faster than a Bugatti. And so what? What's the point of all that if it doesn't make you feel anything? What's the point of monstrous performance figures if the car doesn't challenge you? If it doesn't make your palms sweat as you grip the steering wheel, knowing that you and only you are in control? Where's that gut-wrenching, primal fear that comes with knowing that one wrong move could end in disaster? Where's the adrenaline? Where's the rush of taming a machine that's constantly on the edge of control? Sports cars are dead. Oh sure, there are digital reincarnations, hyper-hybrids with 1,000 horsepower that launch like spaceships, but the soul is gone. All that's left are numbers, driving modes, fake engine sounds pumped through the speakers to trick you into believing it's something more than just another lifeless machine. But why? Why did things change? Why don't we see cars anymore that ignite our emotions? Why have sports cars turned into soulless, sanitized, corporate-designed gadgets? That's what we're going to talk about because if you, like me, miss the days when cars were monsters, not machines, we have a lot to discuss. The grandeur of the past. Let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to the days when sports cars were more than just fast machines, when they were an experience, an adventure, a statement. It wasn't about who had the most sensors or the biggest touchscreen. It was about raw power, pure mechanical genius, and a driving experience that could make your heart race just by looking at the car. Do you remember the Ferrari 250 GTO? That iconic red beauty, handcrafted by Enzo Ferrari himself. This wasn't some assembly line, mass-produced car. No, every piece of that car was molded by human hands with tools that sounded more like a symphony of artistry than a factory production line. The body was shaped with hammers, not computers. The engine wasn't fine-tuned by a machine, but by the ear of a true craftsman, listening for the perfect note of a perfectly tuned engine. The suspension? Well, you could barely call it that. Every bump, every dip in the road was felt deep in your bones. But that was the beauty of it. This car didn't forgive you if you didn't give it the respect it demanded. If you couldn't tame the beast, it would throw you off. But when you did tame it, when you learned how to work with it, the joy was indescribable. No modern car could match that thrill. that connection. And then there was the Ford GT40, a machine built not just for speed but for revenge. You see, Henry Ford II wasn't about to let Ferrari walk away from a deal, so what did he do? He built a car that would decimate Ferrari on the track, and that's exactly what it did. 4 times in a row, at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the GT40 destroyed Ferrari, making them eat their pride and their profit. But let's not kid ourselves. This car wasn't about comfort. It wasn't about luxury. It was about one thing: kicking Ferrari's ass. It was built for one purpose and one purpose only: to win. It was loud, aggressive, and in your face. It wasn't trying to impress you with its sophisticated tech or quiet efficiency. It was built to make a statement, and it succeeded. Then there was the Lamborghini Countach. Oh, the Countach. This car was the definition of exotic. You didn't just drive it, you owned it. The moment you laid eyes on it, you knew it was different. The sharp, angular lines, the rear wing that seemed to scream, "I'm here to take over the world," and those iconic scissor doors that opened upward like a spaceship taking off. And the gee sound? Don't even get me started. The V12 engine howled like a beast from another planet. Sure, getting in and out of it was a workout, and it wasn't exactly the most practical car in the world. But who cared? It wasn't about practicality. It was about passion, about desire. It was a car that made you feel alive every time you saw it, let alone drove it. And let's not forget the Porsche 911 Turbo. Now, if you ever wanted to talk about a car that required your full attention, this was it. The 911 Turbo wasn't for the faint of heart. If you were too cocky with the throttle, you were going to find yourself in a spin before you knew what hit you. It was a machine that demanded respect, and if you gave it that respect, it would reward you with some of the most rewarding driving experiences of your life. It wasn't about numbers or how fast you could go in a straight line. It was about feel, about handling, about knowing your car so well that you could predict every move it would make. It was a relationship between driver and machine, an intimate bond that modern cars just don't seem to offer anymore. These cars weren't perfect. They didn't have the fancy screens, the adaptive cruise control, or the lane-keeping assistance. Hell, most of them didn't even have air conditioning or power steering. But they had something far more important: character. They were raw, unrefined, and unpolished. They made you work for the experience, but that's what made it so rewarding. You weren't just driving a car. You were in a battle with it, feeling every twist and turn of the road, every surge of power as you pressed the pedal to the metal dot, and that's what made them legendary. They weren't about pleasing everyone. They weren't trying to be all things to all people. They didn't need to be. They were made for enthusiasts, for people who truly understood what it meant to drive, to feel the car beneath them. They weren't about numbers or 0 to 60 times. They were about the connection between driver and machine, the bond that existed between man and machine when both were in perfect harmony. These cars weren't just machines. They were works of art. They had soul, and that's what made them stand out in a world where everything is mass-produced and optimized to be as efficient as possible. These cars were outliers. They were the rebels, the mavericks. And when you got behind the wheel, you knew it. The Dark Ages. How sports cars lost their soul. Here's where the fun starts to go downhill. Let's face it. Once the digital age kicked in, the world of sports cars started to take a serious nosedive. It wasn't all at once, of course. At first, it was just little tweaks, a bit more tech here, a dash of electronic wizardry there. But before we knew it, the soul of sports cars began to disappear faster than your last paycheck after a weekend. In Vegas, you remember when we used to rely on skill, right? When you had to feel the road, feel the engine, and battle against the car's own tendency to throw you into a ditch at the wrong moment? Yeah, those days are long gone. Now it's all about the perfect driving experience. Perfectly smooth, perfectly safe, and perfectly boring. Seriously, where's the danger? Where's the adrenaline rush that used to come from almost losing control? In the modern world, that thrill has been replaced by screens, buttons, and systems that keep you from actually driving. It's like getting into a car and feeling more like a passenger than a driver. You know those systems I'm talking about, right? Adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, automatic emergency braking. The list goes on. And while they might be fantastic for saving you from doing something incredibly stupid, they've made the driving experience feel more like a simulation than reality. You can't even feel the car anymore. It's like they're doing all the work for you, and all you have to do is sit back and relax. Is that what driving has come to? Pushing a button and letting the car do everything? What happened to actually driving? And don't get me started on electric cars. Oh, great. You've got a car that's faster than a jet engine and doesn't burn a single drop of fuel. But here's the catch. It feels like a video game. It has no personality, no growl, no heart. You press a button and the car goes, but where's the roar of the engine? Where's that gut-punching sound of a V8 or V12 begging for more? All you hear is a faint hum, like the car is just politely asking you to go faster. It's polite, it's smooth, but it's sterile. It's not a machine that makes you feel like you're in control of a ferocious beast. It's a fancy appliance that gets you from point A to point B. But hey, let's talk about how everything is now about numbers. You know the drill. 0, 60 in 2.5 seconds. 700 horsepower. All-wheel drive. Sounds impressive, right? Sure, if you're looking for a number to impress your buddies at a bar. But in real life, who cares about how fast? A car can go in a straight line if you don't even feel it. Who needs 700 horsepower if the car's so well-behaved that you don't have to actually fight to keep it on the road? All this power, all these systems, but what's missing is the one thing that made sports cars legendary: the fight, the struggle. The challenge. In the old days, you had to be on your toes. You had to be one with the car, or it was going to bite you. You couldn't just mash the gas and expect to go straight. If you gave too much throttle too soon, you'd be staring at the sky, wondering how you got there. But now, you could probably sleep through the ride and still make it to your destination in one piece. There's no excitement in that. It's like eating a meal without any spice. Sure, it's filling, but it's bland as hell. And let's talk about the absolute disaster that's the fake engine sound. Yes. Now, instead of listening to the visceral growl of a real engine, we get speakers and amplifiers playing a recorded sound that's meant to simulate the roar of a real engine. Simulate it. It's like a 90s video game trying to convince you that it's a real-life adventure. It's not real. It's not authentic. It's a cheap trick to make you feel like you're driving a car with character, when in reality, all you're doing is sitting in a high-tech chair that goes fast. It's these little details, these artificial experiences that are stripping away everything that once made sports cars so incredible. We've gone from the raw, untamed machines that demanded your full attention and skill to sanitized, predictable gadgets that take no effort to drive. And I know some people love it. Some people are perfectly happy in their tech-savvy, automatic driving, screen-filled cars. But for those of us who remember what it was like to feel the engine in our chest, to hear the tires scream as we push the limits, well, it feels like a piece of our soul was taken away. Sports cars, in their true, unfiltered form, are gone, and what we've got left is a facsimile of what used to be. It's like looking at a once beautiful painting that's now covered in fingerprints, smudged and altered to make it more acceptable to the masses. It's still a car, sure. It still has the specs, the numbers, the speed. But it's missing the most important thing, the soul. And that, my friends, is what we've lost. That is the dark truth of how sports cars have evolved, or rather devolved into what they are now. Now we're left with nothing more than empty shells, shiny and fast, but lacking the heart that once made them great. And the worst part? We're told that we should be grateful for it. The Golden Age, the last era of true sports cars. Okay, let's take a trip back in time, before all these technological gadgets and digital nonsense took over. Let's talk about a time when sports cars were pure, untamed beasts. Back when the car was alive, not a computer on wheels. Back when you didn't need to worry about apps, screens, or autopilot because you were the system. It was a time when every curve, every engine roar, every flick of the throttle made you feel like you were holding the reins of a ferocious animal. It wasn't about being the fastest, it was about feeling everything. You know, Ferrari 250 GTO, the one that was built by hand, with a design so flawless, so instinctive that it felt like the car could fly at any moment. The GTO was like a wild stallion, a machine with a heartbeat. When you drove it, it wasn't a smooth, effortless experience. No, it was a raw, powerful struggle like trying to tame an animal with nothing but your hands. Every bump in the road was felt deep in your soul, and you had to keep your wits about you because the car didn't care whether you were ready or not. But when you did manage to get in sync with it, there was nothing else like it. No hypercar of today could give you that feeling. Nothing. Compares dot. And then there was the Ford GT40. This wasn't just a car. It was revenge on wheels. It was a fist, aimed squarely at Ferrari's face. Henry Ford Secund had tried to buy Ferrari, and when they refused, he didn't just sulk in a corner. He went out and built a car that would destroy Ferrari at their own game. The GT40 wasn't built for comfort or convenience. It was built to humiliate the best in the world, and it did just that. It crushed Ferrari on the track, not once, not twice, but 4 times in a row at Le Mans. But what made it truly special wasn't just its performance. It was the spirit. It was an uncompromising car, unforgiving, brutal, but insanely fast. It was an era of engineering that said, we don't care about creature comforts. We care about speed. We care about victory. Then, of course, there was the Lamborghini Countach. This car wasn't just fast, it was otherworldly. With its angular design and scissor doors, it looked like it came straight out of the future. Hell, it looked like it came straight from an alien invasion. The Countach was one of those cars that made you believe in the impossible. But here's the catch. As gorgeous and futuristic as it was also a pain to drive. It was cramped, uncomfortable, and nearly impossible to see out of. But you didn't care. You'd put up with all that because the moment you turned that engine on, it was magic. The roar, the growl of that V12. It didn't just sound like a car. It sounded like a monster waking up, and driving it was like taming that monster, trying to keep it from ripping you apart. But when you did manage to control it, you felt like a god. It wasn't just about going fast. It was about the entire experience. It was about feeling every shift of the gears, every inch of the road, every heartbeat that matched the engine's growl. And let's not forget the Porsche 911 Turbo, a true legend. If the Countach was a ferocious lion, the 911 Turbo was a cunning, stealthy predator. This car wasn't about screaming at you with its looks or raw power. It was more subtle, more refined. But don't let that fool you. If you weren't paying attention, it would bite back hard. The 911 Turbo didn't care about your fancy driving aids or your advanced electronics. It made you earn every bit of speed. You made one wrong move, and bam, it was gone. It was a car that demanded your full attention, that made you rise to the challenge. If you could handle it, it rewarded you with a driving experience that would leave you speechless. The 911 Turbo was the last of a breed of cars that didn't ask for your permission. It took what it wanted, and it didn't care how hard you fought. But these cars were more than just machines. They were icons. They were alive. Every car was different, and every car was an experience. Whether you were battling the rough ride of a Ferrari or trying to outsmart the snappy gear shifts of a Lamborghini, you were in constant contact with the car. It was like a relationship. You had to understand it, respect it, or it would leave you in the dust. Today, all that's gone. Sure, these old cars were hard to drive. They demanded skill, patience, and nerves of steel. but they also gave you something in return, an experience that made you feel alive, that made you love driving. Today, well, it's like living in a world where cars have become too comfortable, too safe, too predictable. The thrill is gone, the excitement is gone. But back then, when you got behind the wheel of a real sports car, you didn't just drive it, you became it. The digital age. Where did we go wrong? Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the digital age. This is where things really took a turn. And if you ask me, this is when sports cars lost their soul. But how did this happen? Was it some grand conspiracy? A plot hatched by corporations to make our cars smarter, faster, more efficient? Or did we simply let ourselves get seduced by the promise of technology, thinking that more was always better? Either way, here we are. Sports cars today are nothing more than advanced gadgets on wheels. It all started innocently enough, right? Sure, we wanted faster cars, better handling, and a more comfortable driving experience, but then it went too far. We started adding a bunch of digital features, and suddenly, every car was a computer with four wheels. It wasn't about the pure thrill of driving anymore. It was about making cars so technically advanced that they could practically drive themselves. The problem is that in this technological race, we lost touch with what really mattered, the visceral, untamed feeling of being one with the machine. Let's start with the basics. Back in the day, a car was something you had to work with. You didn't just hop in, press a button, and go. You had to know the car, feel it, understand it. And the car had a personality. It wasn't a buttoned-up robot. It was a living, breathing beast that demanded respect. In today's world, it's all about numbers and graphs and algorithms. Speed? Check. 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.7 seconds? Of course. Handling? Perfect. It's all great on paper, but guess what? It's boring. There's no excitement, no challenge. We've traded the soul of driving for the convenience of computers. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not some nostalgic purist who thinks that we should get rid of all the technology and go back to carburetors and manual gearboxes. I'm not suggesting that we abandon all progress. But let's be honest. When you get into a car today, it feels like you're getting into a spaceship. Everything is too perfect, too sterile. The steering wheel doesn't shake. When you hit a bump, the engine doesn't roar when you hit the gas, and the car doesn't talk to you. There's no heart, no soul, no raw power. It's like driving a soulless machine. You've lost that connection, the one you had in older cars, where the slightest mistake could send you careening into a ditch. But when you pulled it off perfectly, you felt like a god. Then we have the nightmare of driver assist technologies. Lane departure warnings, automatic, braking, collision sensors, all these things that are supposed to help you. But here's the problem. They don't just help you. They do it for you. I mean, come on, where's the fun in that? If I wanted a car to drive itself, I'd just buy a robot and call it a day. No, I want to feel the car. Respond to me, not the other way around. When you're constantly being protected by algorithms, you stop being a driver and become a passenger in your own car. The worst part? These cars still get called sports cars, when in reality they're just digital amusement parks. Fast? Sure. Fun? Not even close. And let's not forget the turbocharged engines that sound more like a vacuum cleaner than a high-performance motor. Oh yeah, and that fake engine noise pumped through the speakers, so it sounds like you're driving a beast, but it's all a lie. It's like putting a leather jacket on a kid. Playing dress-up. Sure, it might look the part, but we all know it's not the real thing. The real sports car sound, the growl, the deep rumble that made your chest vibrate when you pressed the pedal, that's gone. In its place, a synthetic noise designed to give you a false sense of excitement. And the worst part, people actually buy it. They believe that they're getting that raw, untamed experience. It's like living in a simulation of what a sports car is supposed to feel like. Here's the kicker. These digital cars, despite all their sophistication, still don't get it. They don't capture that primal, almost spiritual connection between the driver and the machine. The fun of Driving wasn't about how fast you could go, but about how connected you were to the road, to the car, and to the moment. These modern cars, with all their bells and whistles, strip that away. Sure, you can hit 60 miles per hour in 2 seconds, but where's the adrenaline? Where's the rush of fighting to keep control of the car when the back end steps out in a corner? Where's the soul? Now, I'm not saying that we should go back to the days of barely functional cars that could barely reach 100 miles per hour, but I do think we need a middle ground, a balance between technology and feeling. A car that uses technology to enhance the driving experience, not to replace it entirely. Imagine a sports car that still gives you the raw, unfiltered power and feedback, but also integrates modern tech to help you stay in control, just enough to let you push the limits, not surpass them entirely. I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to remember what a real sports car feels like. We need to stop letting technology rob us of the thrill. Maybe the future of sports cars isn't just about faster times or more efficient engines. Maybe it's about going back to the roots, finding that sweet spot where you're still in charge and the car is still a beast, but one that you can tame and make your own. It might not be easy, but I'm sure it's possible. After all, if there's one thing we know about car enthusiasts, it's that we'll always be searching for that perfect ride, the one that makes you feel alive. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get it back. The future of sports cars. What lies ahead? Here we are at the final part. We've walked through the old cars, through the times when cars were real, alive, uncompromising. But what's next? Will sports cars, as we've known them, completely disappear, giving way to hybrid electric cars driven by computers and autopilots? Will the dreams of adrenaline, real driving, and those truly sensual moments of driving be left as just a piece of history? Or is there still hope for the future that will bring something new, something that might restore that very magic that the old cars once had? Let's figure it out. On one hand, we live in an era where technology is advancing so quickly that old cars already seem like artifacts from the past century. All these electric cars which are taking over the market, more and more, certainly impress. Take Tesla Roadster with its incredible acceleration, or Rimac Nevera, which literally puts any gasoline supercar in its place. Yes, that's impressive, but where's the feeling? Where's that moment when you're behind the wheel and fighting for every fraction of a second to not lose control? In these new cars, there's everything, but not that. Instead of an explosion of soul, you get a well-oiled machine. It's fast, smart, efficient, but there's no life. There's no roaring engine, no vibrations, no feeling that you are the one in control, not some computer or algorithm. But let's not jump to conclusions too quickly. Maybe sports cars do have a future. I can assure you they do, but it's going to be something entirely different. The future will still allow sports cars to return to their alive state. Every now and then, people emerge who remember what it was like, and they refuse to accept that cars have turned into intelligent gadgets. They want to bring back what made sports cars. And in this, there's hope. Look at manufacturers who still try to maintain that spirit in their models. Take Ford with their Mustang Mach-1, which holds on to the pure concept of a car with a powerful V8 engine, or Ferrari, which still builds cars where you're not just sitting behind the wheel, you're fighting for every fraction of a second. Yes, they still rely on technology, but they don't make it the main thing. It's just there to help the driver get better. There's still that feeling that you're taming a beast, not just following a computer's will. Another example is McLaren, which, despite its love for innovations and high-tech features, keeps the idea of the car as a tool for a real driver. While McLaren does build high-tech supercars, they understand that real driving isn't just about numbers on a screen. It's about the interaction between driver and car. And to achieve that, they make sure the car stays alive and doesn't turn into an empty shell full of sensors. But there's another interesting perspective. Many people argue that the future of sports cars isn't just about new car models, but a whole new approach to what a sports car is. What if we look at Electrification not as the end of an era, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where you could feel the car even more clearly. Electric cars have a lot of advantages. Instant torque, no. Vibrations from the engine, which allows the driver to focus solely on the road conditions and control. Manufacturers are already experimenting with creating cars in which the electric motors will provide not just speed but also a sense of feeling. Imagine that electric vehicles could give you the sensation of sitting inside a living mechanism where every moment is a true fusion of driver and car. Yes, this doesn't exist yet, but who knows what the future will bring? There's also one more thing to consider. When we talk about the return of real sports cars, we can't forget the impact of new technology on safety. Of course, everything related to active and passive safety systems always brings mixed feelings to lovers of real driving. On one hand, it's great that it's almost impossible to flip the car on a corner or lose control during a sharp acceleration. But on the other hand, this takes away the real pleasure of driving. And here comes the question, could something change? Maybe in the future they'll create something that, on one hand, has all the safety benefits, but on the other hand, lets the driver feel every bit of emotion. From controlling the car? I think that in order for sports cars to regain their soul, they must become true partners for the driver again, not just a computer on wheels. At this moment, technologies, no matter how cool they are, still can't recreate that unique symbiosis between man and machine. But who knows? Maybe we just have to wait for the moment when technologies will give us the same driving experience we had with old cars, and then we'll feel again that a sports car isn't just a means of transportation. It's a real adventure that starts with every ride. So, while we wait, dreaming of the return of real sports cars, let's not forget that in the world of automobiles, there will always be room for real driving. And while we can't find it in today's cars, let's keep looking for it in those classic models that will always hold that magic we love. Sports cars may change, but their spirit will live on.